Welcome to Q Automation Hub. In this video, we'll see what is an exception handling in Java. So an exception is a problem that happens during the execution of your program, and when this exception occurs, the normal flow of the program is disrupted and the application terminates abnormally. Okay, and this is not recommended, and we should know how to handle this kind of exceptions so that the program will keep running even after the exception has occurred. Okay, and this the throwable class, we have it in Java to handle this kind of exceptions, and that is the super class. And under that we have two main subclasses. One is error, the other one is exception. And mostly the error or unchecked type, but the exceptions we have both checked and unchecked type. The checked exceptions are nothing like it known to the compiler at the compile time itself, while the unchecked exceptions are known to the compiler at the runtime only. Okay, and it is mostly caused by the programmer who writes the code. And we will see one by one what are error and what is exception. Error class extends throwable class where this error or unchecked type as it is thrown during the runtime. Okay, so this indicates a serious problem that a reasonable application should not try to catch because most of these errors are abnormal conditions. Okay, and it surely causes termination of the program abnormally. Okay, and here you can see below are some kind of errors that happens, and these classes are the child classes of this error class. Okay, and we have no class def found error, no such method error, out of memory, stack overflow, virtual machine error. So these are some classes, child classes for this error class, and which cannot be get recovered by handling techniques. So these errors, right? So for example, if you take the out of memory error, so here virtual JVM cannot allocate an object because it's out of memory, and no more memory could be made available by the garbage collector, right? So this kind of errors happens during the runtime, and we cannot be able to handle it because we will not be knowing about these errors, right? And in our code. And the stack overflow error, the application recurses too deeply, right? At that time, this kind of stack overflow error will happen, and that is the difference between the error and the exception. Okay, so error normally you can handle it, but you will not be able to know when this error will happen. And once that error happens, because that happens during some abnormal conditions. Okay, during some system crash or something. So it is hard to handle using the try catch blocks, but you can do it. We'll see some examples for a practical usage, but this kind of errors cannot be handled, but exceptions can be handled, and that also extends the throwable class, and it has two things. One is checked and unchecked type. So checked exceptions comes under the exception class. Okay, and that occurs during the compile time. Okay, it is identified during the compile time itself, and some of the below classes or the child classes of this exception class. Okay, IO exception, SQL exception, data access, malformed URL, file not found. So when you are using any scanner or buffer reader class, they comes to know that it might cause an IO exception, or if you are trying to read some file, then it might cause some file not found exception, right? So the compiler itself will so those are called as unchecked exception, and the compiler itself ask you to catch those exceptions. Okay, so that is called as unchecked exception, and that comes under the exception class. And what is an unchecked exception? So that comes under the runtime exception class. So this runtime exception class, right, it inherits the exception class. Okay, and this happens during the runtime, and below are some kind of unchecked exceptions like arithmetic exceptions, null pointer exceptions, index out of bound exceptions, and this is mainly happens by the programmer itself based on their code. Okay, so all these things we need to handle it using the try catch blocks or throws anything. Okay, so that is the recommended way, and we have to handle this using the try catch blocks so that the exceptions will be handled when it happens during the execution. Okay, and these are unchecked exceptions, and we will see some examples out of this one. And in today's topic, we will cover all those things: error class with examples, exception class with examples, what is checked as unchecked exceptions, and try block with multiple catches, and using the resources in the try parameter. Okay, and throw and throws, what is this keyword and why we have to use it, and we have user defined exceptions also, so we can define our own exception class. Okay, so that also we will see in this video.